about football, my next guest is a music mogul and a big football fan. In his musical world, he's been associated with these acts. There you go. That's Britney Spears, NSYNC and Kylie. Just a few names that can be dropped by record producer, once the founder of Jive Records, director of Jive Records, Steve Jenkins. But despite all of those highfalutin names in the world of popular music, Steve is still a proper black country mon through and through, and a Walsall Football Club fan for his sins as well. And he's just written a book called Walking Down the Wensbury Road. There you go. So we've spoken to you in the past, Steve, about your music career a couple of times, and always great speaking to you. What drove you then to sort of write up your career as a Walsall fan?
Well, after I did the book on my career in music, and I was promoting that book, and so obviously I was up in the Midlands a lot to do that, as well as London and other places. But whenever I came back to the Midlands, everybody that would come along when I was doing book signings or when I was doing interviews or appearing at somewhere, then they'd always say to me, oh, you know, what's your favourite Walsall team? Who's your favourite Walsall player? And of course, because a lot of the supporters know me, they knew that a lot of the players were friends of mine. And so obviously I knew inside stories from behind the scenes, and I enjoyed writing the music book. And so I thought, well, am I going to write another book? Is that it? And then I sat down in December 2010 and thought, well, I'll just put a few thoughts down about Walsall Football Club and my 50 years of supporting the Saddlers, you know. And so the book started to develop from that. And then we were in the worst winter that we'd had for some time in 2010. So December, January, February and March, if you can recall, that the football stopped for 5 weeks because the weather was so bad. So I was cooped up in the house and I started to write, and then I couldn't stop. And so it developed itself very, very quickly. You know?
That's nice to hear. There's no writer's block for you, because you're writing about something that you love and that you know. And you write at the start of the book as well about following Walsall for the first time, the first time you went down to Fellows Park.
Well, absolutely. You know, I mean, my grandfather, Harry Jenkins, was a Walsall supporter, and so was my father, William Allen Jenkins, both. So it was in the family. So from, you know, probably 2 or 3 years old, I'd heard all the stories about Walsall Football Club. And I was 8 years old, and I remember being at my grandfather's house, and my grandfather said that it was now time that I made my debut as a Saddlers supporter. And I can remember my dad talking to my mum saying, can he go? You know, and my mom sort of gave the nod, you know, she was in charge. And my granddad then took me down to Fellas Park, you know, which I still recall vividly, you know, the clunk of the turnstiles for the first time when you go through them. And also being in the car park at Fellas Park, and you looked up and saw Walsall Football Club blasted across the top there. And then in through the turnstiles and down by the side of the stand, for those people that can remember it, was the first glimpse I got of the Hillary Street end and then the pitch, which, you know, to me was Wembley. You know, it was just an awesome moment. And that was actually a game against Rotherham. We won the game 1-0 and George Meek scored the goal.
You can remember that. That's good. And was there any doubt that you would be a Saddlers fan?
No doubt at all. I don't think it was ever considered, you know, that I would support Aston Villa or Birmingham City or Wolverhampton Wanderers or, you know, the Baggies. None of those. They were passing interests with the local papers, you know, the Pinks. So obviously I'd read about those teams in the Saturday Night Pinks. But, you know, because my family was completely Walsall Football Club, I don't think there was... I think my my dad and my grandfather would have been appalled if I'd have decided to be a baggy.
It's interesting. I was reading a little piece about Tony Brown, actually, the Albion legend.
I remember him.
There was a 50th anniversary marking his start of the club programme on Saturday for the game against Sunderland. And I think one of the local journalists writing about that picked up on the fact that Bomber's son, even though he's one of Albion's greatest servants, his son had a period when he was growing up and being a Villa fan. So
harsh.
I dread to think what your dad and granddad would have said.
Oh, yeah,
and you were sort of starting supporting then in the sort of the start of the 60s, and I know you say in the book, it was before Match of the Day, before people from this area started supporting Manchester United and Chelsea and any of that.
Yeah.
It might not have been Warsaw, but people are always going to support a local team anyway.
I think that's the way we grew up back in the late 50s and early 60s. You supported the team that you were closest to. I presume there was a Champions League or European Cup back in those days, obviously because of the Manchester United thing, we remember that. But I don't think it wasn't like it is today, where kids kind of want to support Manchester United because they're winning all the time, or Chelsea because they've got so much money they can buy anybody, or Manchester City nowadays, I suppose. Back in those days, it was very much the local team. And of course, the crowds were bigger. Back in those days, Walsall were pulling crowds of 10 and 12,000, and on a huge game could be pulling nearly 20,000, which of course doesn't happen today. So I think the small football teams or the local football teams were the centrepiece of entertainment to a large degree, and so you were attracted to it. And then, of course, the Birmingham Mail or the Express and Star, the Evening Mail or the Express and Star, they gave you snippets of information every evening on, who was likely to be in the team or what transfer speculation there was, etc., etc. So
just sort of feeding the interest and
the interest for Saturday.
Keeping it going. I mean, here we are on BBC WM with a football phony now 5 nights a week from 6 till 7. Just, that whole industry around football has grown, and media probably now more accurately, I think, reflecting the appetite that people have for it. You were fortunate though, weren't you, because that sort of first Walsall era that you started watching them in was quite a good era as well. They were quite decent then.
They're pretty decent now.
They are.
We're a good footballing team,
But I mean,
you don't want to mention the result at Wolverhampton Wanderers the other night, then.
I was there actually. I was there.
Oh, were you there?
I was there with a mix actually, with a couple of mates who were Wolves fans, and 3 mates who were Sadlers fans. So there was I as the Albion fan, sort of holding the piece.
You were refereeing.
They were extremely good that night. But I mean, in that era, they were in what would now be the Championship, weren't they? It was the last time, in fact, for 25 years that they were going to get into that level of football. Yeah,
the first games that I saw were basically in the Championship or Division 2 as it was back then. And then, they had 2 seasons there and then dropped down into the 3rd division, and it would be 25 years, I think, before they made it back into the Championship. But the team, after the team basically got dismantled, as they do when you drop a division, even back then the teams got dismantled. But what happened then was we had a fantastic youth team that came through and became the backbone of the Walsall side for probably the next 7 or 8 seasons. Frank Gregg and John Harris and Mick Evans and Stan Bennett and Stan Jones and Nick Athy were the mainstay of the team and played for the team for 8 to 10 years. They're still the players that have amassed most of the appearances, and Colin Taylor as well.
Yeah, over the years, loads of ups and downs. That's part of the joy of being a football fan.
Absolutely.
What is your highest and lowest point as a Sadlers fan?
Well, I guess everybody remembers the big day out at Cardiff when we made the playoff final and beat Reading when we weren't supposed to and went back up into the Championship. So I suppose that stands out as the main moment, which everyone recalls because it was a major final, and Walsall have not been to too many of them. But for me, really, when we beat Oldham at home and went back into the Championship again, and the moment of Chris Marsh's goal, because Marshy's been a mate of mine for 20 years, and when he hit that goal, his only goal of the season, there was a big roar went up. And so I guess those moments of promotion for Walsall back into the Championship, and when David Kelly scored the hat-trick, which took us back up into the Championship as well. Those moments, the great cup run of 83-84, when we really gave Liverpool a bit of a roasting, up at Anfield, and we're unlucky to lose at Fellows Park.
A great Liverpool team as well in that era.
Well, that team in that season actually did the treble, the League Cup, the FA Cup and the European Cup. So we were sticking our head in the lion's mouth there, and we came out unscathed, basically, although we lost. I think had we played any of the other semi-finalists, Everton or Aston Villa, I'd have fancied us to make the final. But getting Liverpool was a tough call back in that day. Yeah. I mean, the low moments, of course, of relegation puts a cloud over your summer, and that's for sure. So every relegation takes a little bit of getting over, but that's football.
And that horrendous period in the mid-80s when Ken Weldon was the owner of Walsall and had also then taken over Birmingham City and had the plan for the Saddlers to play at St Andrews and flog off Fellows Park. Who knows, maybe for his scrap metal empire.
Well, I suppose, there was a couple of occasions there. It almost happened with the Wolves a few years before, and then it was with Birmingham City. And you can... If you look at it as a pure business arena, they were probably business-wise correct in what they were doing. But it's a football club. You can't do that with a football club. There's too much passion. There'd be outcry, which of course there was, And had Walsall have played at Wolverhampton Wanderers, I wouldn't have gone. There's no question. I couldn't go to the Custard Bowl and watch Walsall. I'm afraid I couldn't do that.
Well, I was there at those great nights at Walsall Town Hall when Barry Blower galvanised the town against any move out of the town. And as you say now, good times have returned. Very good team at the moment. Gates are starting to build again.
Yes.
Favourite Walsall? But give me your top three, your favourite Walsall players over the years.
Well, my all-time hero is back from when I was a kid, and that's Alan Clark. Sniffer, who went on to play for Fulham and Leicester and Leeds United, of course, in the glory days. But for Walsall, I think he played something like 95 times and scored 46 goals. And he was 18 or 19 at the time, so you could tell he was a class act way back then.
And a member of a great black country footballing family as well, Alan Clark, weren't there? There were loads of them.
Five of them, actually. 5 of them.
And you say you had the pleasure of seeing him play for the Saddlers.
2 seasons. Two seasons. And when he got transferred to Fulham, I didn't quite understand transfers back then, and I kind of thought if you were playing for Walsall Football Club, you'd reach the pinnacle. So when he got transferred to Fulham, I couldn't quite get my head around it. I had to retire to my bedroom and cry over that one,
I still think that's the attitude that you have to have as a fan. If they're playing for your club, they've reached the pinnacle. It is never permissible for a player to move on to a so-called bigger or better club. Never, in my view. But there we go.
It's their careers.
No, there's your business head now. So go on then, Sniffer Clark.
Stan Bennett is my all-time favourite centre-half, although that we've had some good centre-halves at Walsall. But I love Stan Bennett for his all-action performance and 100% play, so he will forever be my favourite centre-half. And then, of course, I've got so many friends that have been long-standing friends that have played for the team. People like Mark Rees and Jimmy Walker.
Mark Rees, I've never forgiven him for flattening me in a schoolboy match. I'm not kidding. I played in a schoolboy match against Mark Rees, and he came up behind me. He was about twice the size of me. He was one of those lads who was like a man when he was about 14.
Yeah.
He would have beaten me anyway. Came barging in and flattened me. Never forgiven him.
Well, you know, Rico, he's flattened a few in his time. And, of course, Chrissy Marsh, been a mate of mine for 20-odd years, you know, same with Jimmy Walker. And so, really, as the team's changed, even if you go right back to the 60s, I suppose it all started, really, because I broadcasted at the ground for 6 seasons. So I was the DJ there at the ground for 6 seasons as I was trying to develop into being a radio broadcaster, which that's what I thought I was going to be. And
hey, never too late.
But of course, records took me in a different way, really. But I was aiming to be a broadcaster, not to be a record producer. But, you know, life kind of moves along. But through all of that, no matter where I've been, even if I've been in Los Angeles, I've timed my flight back to Heathrow so that I could get home in London, sleep for an hour, and then drive up and see the game. I've come back from Singapore, arrived at Heathrow, drove up and watched the game, you know. So I've done some outrageously stupid things on very little sleep in my passion for the Saddlers, and I guess it'll be for the rest of my life. Really.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. A beautiful book called Walking Down the Wensbury Road by Steve Jenkins. If people want to get hold of it, how can they get it? You do any signs?
Well, it's on my website. It's on Amazon, and it will be also in the Walsall Football Club shop, obviously. And we're doing a launch at the football club a week on Saturday against the Bradford City game, where I think 2 or 3 of the old footballers, maybe Rico, I'll remind him about flattening.
I'm keeping out the way.
Yeah. So a few of the old boys are going to come down and sign copies with me, and you know, we're going on the pitch at half time, I believe, and you know, making a bit of a day of it, really.
Fantastic. Well, good luck to you. It's a lovely book. Steve Jenkins, Walking Down the Wensbury Road, available on Amazon from Steve Jenkins' own website, or as he says, before the Bradford City game, there'll be a little bit of a signing, and it'll be in the Walsall Club shop.